Good morning, folks. It's actually early afternoon, but we'll just pretend.
Yes, we'll pretend.
Because in a way, this whole experience we're all having, kind of time doesn't exist in a weird way. But our morning matcha is ready.
Yes, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Cheers, everybody. Yeah. I don't know if anyone is actually holding a matcha latte in their hands as well. You never know. Someone could be as crazy as us.
And I'm still wearing my poncho because I had to actually drive out to Barry's Bay to pick up goat's milk.
Yes.
We wouldn't have been able to have the matcha latte.
And I'm in my camo. Just for a fashion statement.
Camo, man.
It's actually, I wore it because the oranges are perfect complementary to the blues in the background. Very conscious camo.
Yes. Anyway, I want to thank my friend Terry Ann, whom I've known for, oh my God, I've known Terry Ann almost as long as I've known you. So over
What a coincidence. I've known her as long as
37 years? Going on 37 years? I think it was the summer of 1983, if I'm correct. I mean, God, time is so weird. Yeah, so Terry Ann is, what are you doing?
Just check, I'm like, oh yeah, there's some little smudges on them. Sorry folks, let's see Raven. That's very cool.
Distract.
Anyways, back to what you're saying. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. But anyway, so yes, I've known Terry Ann for 37 years, and that's a very long time, and we've had a very close relationship. Sometimes we go our own way for a while, and then we come back together, but she is one of my closest friends in terms of intimate conversations that we've had.
Soul sister.
Definitely a soul sister. Absolutely. So one of the things Terry mentioned is that she would have loved yesterday when we were talking about Heather Horton's beautiful paintings, that we could have flipped the camera to actually show them. So we're going to do that today. We're going to do that now. The only challenge we're facing is it's a bit overcast today, so we're not getting as much sun coming in. So I'm going to go downstairs and turn on the big chandelier to hopefully light up the paintings, and then we'll talk a little bit about them, and then.
Do you want to drink your matcha first, just because it's going to be really cold by the time we get back, or not, or guzzle it? That's kind of sacrilegious. So.
It is. Yeah, I'm going to just enjoy it. But
one short distraction for a moment. It's not really. It is all about our matcha cups, bowls. We got these bowls, or I bought them against Raven's better judgment, maybe about, 15 years ago.
It was in Fergus.
From Okimasa and Janina. Okimasa is a Japanese tea master, and they had a little shop set up in Elora, and we got to know them, and they were just really cool people. And I bought these two tea bowls, Japanese tea bowls, from Janina. And the story, if I can remember it correctly, there's a Japanese, I don't know what you call, not a tea master, but a tea bowl master. And he made them all by hand, and he would do the thing where he made his own, he built a kiln over all of his cups, and would have a little cot that he'd lie on, and just, because it was a very slow firing, low heat, that he had to monitor, so he would have this little cot there so he could kind of snooze and wake up and check and, heat it up a bit or cool it down. And I fell in love with this story. I love the look of the bowls as well, but I fell in love with this story, and he has his little stamp on the side, his artist stamp. And she was saying how the cracks, it was that kind of finish that has all the little cracks in it, that most of you probably imagine in your minds. If you don't have something like that, you'll probably have seen it in an art store. And she said that as the tea is drunk day after day, the stain from the tea will go into these cracks, and it'll slowly darken. And it really she said all the right things for me anyways. I don't know if she knew that, but hook, line, and sinker, I was putting a deposit on these bowls, even though as according to Raven, it was like, what the hell are you doing spending that much money on 2 tea bowls? Well, somehow...
Sound familiar, Chair?
somehow these bowls that have been moved here, there, and everywhere and stored and then pulled out not too long ago have not broken somehow. And then we got back into Matcha more recently, and I couldn't wait to find those bowls. And it has been a large part of my experience. I can't speak for Raven, but I just really love them. And I kind of miss Okimasa and Janina. I have no idea. I've never been able to contact them since. But if they are watching, or anyone else is watching who knows them, please pass this on. Maybe we could have them on our show once we start having people on for interviews and stuff. Would be really cool.
I hope they're well. I really enjoyed the Japanese tea ceremonies that we did with them.
Oh,
and
it was
all
magical.
their educational. Yeah, that was wonderful. I loved my time in Fergus, for sure.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And just dropping by their shop, and Okimasa would be in there, and he'd make us a matcha, not a latte. That would probably be
sacrilegious.
But he would make it like masterfully, and the froth that he'd put on top of this tea was phenomenal. I still cannot accomplish it. But yeah, very special guy, and very special wife Janina as well. But yeah, I just thought I'd reflect on that. And I actually took 2 pictures this morning of the bowls themselves, which I'll put the photos, if I'm able to, on this talk as well, just down in comments or something. Yeah, Raven mentioned that we've got a couple more days with the Bear Skull, as far as officially Bear Skull time. And then we're moving on to the Sacred Doors, or what I'm kind of at the moment just referring to as the Doors of Perception, after in honor of Aldous Huxley and his book.
He was a CIA asset.
Well, you can't just say he was. You have a belief. You've come to believe.
I've come to believe a lot of the
is.
guys that we thought were so great turned out to be real jerks. But anyway, unfortunately.
Possibly.
Yeah.
You have no proof. You have absolutely no proof, but there's a reasonable lead.
But okay, don't dedicate
just to
them
go,
to Aldous Huxley, please not.
He wrote the book, Doors of Perception, regardless of whether he is, or we find out he was something different. I found that book powerful, but still, like Raven mentioned, there's always a possibility that someone you're really into or have been into may not have been exactly who they were, the way it was presented, the way you took it when you were younger. You evolve, you learn new things. It's hard to say. I'm still stuck in a
new
relax.
We're living in it right now.
And I'm living with it right now. Holy shit. You gotta be brave to be with this one. Oh my God.
I think it goes the other way too.
But anyways, regardless, Aldous Huxley and many others inspired me at one time, and I have to adjust and grow to meet new things I learn about people, and maybe not, but we are coming to realize a lot of people think that we're wacko conspiracy theorists, and maybe they're right, but I think we're just wacko, and we're not conspiracy theorists, but we do question a lot of things. Just for the info, we do question a lot of things. Even my friend Sebastian, a longtime friend, who's an amazing guy, I sent him some German literature just for him to translate, that a German friend of mine in Germany sent me, and it's all kind of controversial, thought-provoking interpretations of things going on, and I just love digging into all this new stuff. It doesn't mean that I am easily hoodwinked or gullible or anything like that. I think I probably have been in the past, but I'm almost 60, and I think I've done a lot of research. I'm able to go down rabbit holes reasonably safely and pick up the essence of something, or drop the essence of something, and bring it back and just let it sit and germinate with other stuff without having to buy into something or having to buy into a whole story from something. I could have someone that I'm listening to, like Dr. Shiva or Dr. Bhattar, and I don't have to buy into everything that they say, but I might just be enjoying the gist of where they're going, and I've got to hear more of it or something before I can let it settle, and just like a good tea. And just like the little cracks taking in the stain, it takes time, a good patina or something. So I'm very well trained in that as an artist, being very patient and meticulous. So for me, it's not an alien concept to go into those territories without being afraid that everything's going to be stuck to me and I'm going to change in a bad way. I'm also able to walk through a forest of black flies without being driven mad like some people are. So maybe that's part of it. Black flies don't like the taste of me, and maybe these weird energies don't like the taste of me or something. So I'm a little safer maybe. But anyway, so you can get paranoid and think, oh my God, Damon's gone weird. But in all honesty, I do explore a lot of concepts and ideas because it's important to me, just as a person, but also as an artist. And someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it. And for sure, there are people who probably are purely a conspiracy theorist. It's like a hobby, like collecting badges or something, kind of a nerdy thing to do. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But no, we're very real, we're very aware, and we're always willing to update and throw out stuff that doesn't work. Or at least put it in the basement to store for 6 years till we find it's got any value, which I tend to do, being an artist. Like the bear skull. And like the Doors, which I've now had for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. Just knowing that one day they're going to be useful for something. And that time has come. So that's going to be, I'm so excited about getting into that. Like, this is probably the furthest away from what I have had any experience doing. Like with the bear skull, it's definitely far away from what I've ever done. But I did do a little bit of whittling when I was a teenager and a child. But with the Doors, like, I've never done big carving projects at all. So let's say it was scary. Now with my new attitude that I've kind of embraced, I've been determined to face those things that scare me and just use it as a creative project rather than, red knuckling it or whatever. So, that was just sort of the thing I wanted to say before I guzzle my...
I posted which Brave New World vision was scarier, Aldous Huxley or George Orwell, who was his student?
Well, Brave New World was, most of you know, was about this brave new world where everyone was programmed and wired and in a, sorry to say, but a very close to the way we are living, a lot of us in the city. Not quite as literal. In Brave New World, they actually electrocuted the babies on a floor as they would walk towards flowers for the ones that they wanted to not like nature. And so that way when they grew up, excuse me, they would want to live in the city, and they had no attraction or attachment to nature. And then the ones that they wanted to go out into the country, they would have ways of programming them to only relate to nature. I took it as a very symbolic concept of what we don't want, or what the writer Aldous Huxley didn't want and was warning against. And even the overly sanitized way of dying, treatment of people, I don't know, it was just really weird. I have to reread it sometime. And what was that guy's name whipping himself?
John, wasn't it?
John or something. But anyways, very interesting book. Raven since has, and this is that conspiracy theory stuff that you have to read through this stuff to be able to consider for yourself these ideas. And any adult should be able to go through this stuff if they're interested, to expand their minds, stretch their capacity, and possibly shift how they see things. And what Raven did was read a lot of stuff on Aldous Huxley later and on George Orwell. And there was a lot of interesting, thought-provoking thoughts and concepts. One of them being that Aldous Huxley was a CIA
Well, it's not
agent,
CIA.
or
No, he was
something.
he was one of the elite. I'm not saying he was CIA. It was actually Timothy Leary who turned out to be a CIA.
Yeah, Timothy Leary, I was super into, and I have to admit, as he was getting older, there was odd things that he did or said that kind of, I was still fighting the message that was coming through to me, because I just loved Timothy Leary. He was a large part of my inspiration as a late teen. And I saw him, shook his hand, bought his book, you know, got it signed. But then he started to get really into this whole thing of cryogenically preserving his head so that he might be able to be revived after he dies. And it was just getting really different in a lot of ways from what his message was before. Along with quite a few others, like Aldous Huxley, I was always in love with this idea that he died, according to what was said, he died with his wife at his deathbed, and he had wrote, and it was even the scribbled letter I saw, according to the case, where he asked for her to inject a solution of LSD into his whatever tube. And he then asked for a little bit more. Like, he was very far gone, evidently cancer, and then he just sort of slipped out of his body. And me being a real pro LSD guy way back, as far as for journeying on a serious level, that was part of what I really thought was quite amazing.
One of the original CIA mind control drugs, LSD. It's a fact.
It's a fact, but that doesn't mean that. Do you remember My Problem Child?
Yes.
Remember that label?
Yes. That was from the scientist.
So the LSD itself hasn't got a fault. No.
It has a history.
You got a little bit of a smug, like, I've figured it all out. Now, part of this show is to be honest and direct, so we're not hiding anything. And right now, Raven and I are at slight odds with a concept, but this is part of processing. This is how we move through things. Just for you guys to know. Right now, Raven's really focused on this sort of channel of the effects of the CIA or any manipulating over mind controller type of thing. And this all exists. I am 100% confident of this. Where and when and to how much, that's something that, you know, you can learn more and more about. But LSD on its own, from my experiences back when we did quite a lot of it in a very serious way and very, very high quality LSD, had phenomenal potential for inner development, regardless of whether it was
and
used
that's
by
why
the CIA.
It fell out of favor because they had better methods.
Well, because they couldn't control it or people
yes.
as well as they thought at first. Yes. They're like, woo, we got a way to, you know, control people. But it wasn't, some people were having religious experiences when they were hoping that they would go freaked out and stuff. So it wasn't so controllable. So that's interesting. Although I'm sure, just like me with my back burner approach, I'm sure they have a back burner approach too. They put things on a shelf and go, oh, well, maybe later on it can be used for earaches or coronavirus vaccines or something. You never know, right? And that's, I'm not criticizing. That's an important part. Like, never throw anything out and just maybe it'll be useful down the road. I do that all the time. But yeah, there's a lot of people that we held in high standing and esteem. Some of them, John Lilly, doctor, scientist, Timothy Leary, Aldous Huxley, George Orwell, I don't know, they were all sort of kind of radical prophet type of guru-ish beings that inspired us at different stages of our growth and exploration, and we're still growing and still exploring. And sometimes you reach stages where something that you held in a certain light the light changes, and therefore you have to shift a little bit. I mean, I've got an extreme example. My first ever album, double album that I ever bought as a teenager was a Gary Glitter album. And it just wasn't like the music later on listening to it was that great exactly. Well, it wasn't horrible, but it was a memory thing connected to stuff that was important to me as a teenager. And not too much later on, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or something, I found out that Gary Glitter, and this is not just maybe, but I found a video with him admitting it. He was found to be a pedophile, and he'd go off to Thailand and find little boys and this, the whole thing. And it just totally messed up my head. And I remember not long after that, we had moved to Fergus, and there's a public school just around the corner, and we always would hear the kids out for recess. And one day for their track and field, outdoor activity day, one of the teachers had put on the loudspeakers the Gary Glitter music. And I'm thinking, oh my God, do they know that he is a confirmed pedophile? Went to jail and the whole bit. So it's just such a weird,
But you're a
weird
conspiracy
energy.
Theorist, right?
Well,
If you would have gone
no
to them and
theories,
said any.
just fact. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And that's why I didn't go. But there's weird things, and sometimes I wonder, well, is it the message, in this case the music, or is it what's behind it? And many times, and I have defended, in this case I have a hard time with it, but in other cases there could be someone who I don't know if I really would like him if I knew him as a person, but at the same time I feel like they're doing something valuable, or they're speaking something or contributing something that is of value amongst other things that I don't care for. So it's
Well, since we're on that subject, I mean, we had one also when we were in Fergus, a close friend of ours whom we had known in the 90s during our S&M, DNS, primitive explorations. And he ended up staying with us in Fergus for several months. And it was during that time that he admitted to us that he had sexually abused his daughter when she was a child. So
niece, not his daughter. It was his niece.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was his niece.
All right. Well, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
And so that really was a tough call for us because, he was a friend, he was somebody we loved and cared
deep connection
about,
and things.
and had shared very, intense experiences, including on LSD.
And usually if we've ever tripped with someone, it's a very personal kind of thing. And if there was something weird about them, we would pick up on it. Or sometimes someone that we originally thought was a bit weird, our radar on LSD we would be, oh wow, this guy was actually really, or girl was really comfortable to be around energetically, because we've also had those experiences way back in the past. So it's really odd. It really threw us off, and clearly he was fucked up by his past, and hopefully I'd like to trust that he had never done anything since. There is such a thing, but whatever, it had really messed up his mind. And that was part of my dilemma, was like, so what do I do? Do I just kick this guy out that's been a friend for so long because now of what I found out? I think if I knew he was a pedophile in the sense that he was, kind of a practicing pedophile kind of thing, it would have been an easy, clear answer. I just would have been like, I don't need to know this. But it was very difficult also because I was sexually abused by my father as a child, that I knew very well what sexual abuse does to a child. And one of the things that this person had, I think it was the messed upness in his head that he was in conflict with, was he had tried, and he was a very intellectual person, very intelligent. He had developed or attempted to develop a story within his own mind that he had been, he had had sexual experiences with some adult when he was a child, and he felt that it had actually helped him. So this is the story I believe he developed, created in his head to believe, therefore, what he had done had not harmed this little girl. According to him, it was a consensual thing that had happened, and that's a whole other story. Bag of worms. But yeah, so sometimes things happen where you get faced with things where you just cannot come up with a clear answer. You cannot come to terms with anything, and that was a really, he's not alive anymore. And for many years after his death, even, he left us a little suicide note, I'll call it. And it was quite dear, but I wasn't even able to register it because I was so angry. I still went to his funeral and things, but I was so angry, and I had such a mess in my head of how to deal with any of it, that it took, I don't know, almost 10 years later before I found the note, which was surprising that I never lost it.
And here's the note.
You're missing a bit of it there. Okay. There. Anyone that wants to see it, I don't know if that's backwards though. I think it's backwards.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. I can
But
read it. It's actually a beautiful little note, and I do think he died of cancer, but it could have been also an assisted suicide because of the
kind
cancer.
of got tired of suffering, and it may have sped things up a bit. That's my feelings.
And he asked someone to hand this to us, but again, we I don't know why we even held on to it, because we didn't want to read it. But
I quite often stick things away where I'm almost ready to throw something out, and I go, you know what, I'm just going to stuff it in here, especially when it's a letter. It's not a bulky thing. And then I forget about it. And
I'd like to read it now, though. It says, Winter Solstice 2008. I don't have enough words. Absolutely mystical. The two of you have been such divine inspiration, and have enabled me to be more than I ever could have imagined. I'm not saying goodbye. I'm
saying hello. ... And yeah, sometimes you have experiences in life that you cannot make sense of. You cannot process with this. And I think sometimes you shouldn't. I guess the message behind this from me is there's a way to move through life in difficult times and different levels of processing that aren't just like this, and no one has, or if someone has an answer, it may not be your answer. And for anyone that is going through difficult, who isn't, things that are not so easy to process, there are ways of doing that. There's ways of putting it, I call it putting it on a, putting it in a little incubator or something. There's a way to put where to put things, and then as best you can leave them. And some part of you that's bigger than you may recognize is doing something with that information or that experience. You don't have to muscle through it and come up with a conclusion right away. There are deeper parts of ourselves, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, and I'm sure most of you guys do, this is not far-fetched, that can process things while you're not thinking about it. And sometimes should be that which processes things, and the mind has no right getting in the way in some cases. To calculate, well, I've got to go this far and pick up that and get the milk and do whatever. Yeah, it's a great area for the brain and mind to work on, but there's realms, and especially in the case of what's come up for everyone in the world right now, and that's why I think there's so many tangles and people disagreeing with each other and getting really angry and judgmental and stuff, and jumping to conclusions. Is maybe we need to just stop jumping to conclusions, stop judging people, and allow people a little bit of space to investigate and think about and even try on for size belief systems, without jumping on the person or vice versa for that, and just recognize a lot of people right now, maybe everyone, is processing and going through stages of this, and hopefully learning from this experience how, like elevating to a new level of how to do these things, sit on these eggs and let them hatch. without controlling the outcome and being comfortable with that uncertainty. I just remembered as I was speaking about a very good friend and client from the past, Anita, who came to me for double mastectomy, scar cover-up, / energy healing. She knew she was already terminally ill, and which fascinated me that someone, and this first person among many who had come to me later, knowing they weren't here for very long, and for the first time ever, just knew they needed to get a tattoo as part of this that they couldn't process, that was bigger than them, just too big to do anything other than trust something. And in Anita's case, one of the things was trusting that out of nowhere, in a very strong Christian family who didn't agree with tattoos, she had no tattoos whatsoever, and she was at my doorstep and said, I can't believe I'm here. I never would get a tattoo, and for whatever reason, I need to do this. And my family is flipping out. My mother and father might be divorcing, separating over the stress of this. And yet she knew she had to do it, but she had done work on herself enough that she could trust this. So I'm bringing this up. It just came to me for two reasons. One, for that, because it fits in that respect of learning how to trust and how to move through very difficult times that you can't just compute with the noggin, and you have to rely much more on the heart. So with Anita, two things that came up was on that note was, one, she had said she developed an ability to speak to people who had already passed away, and I had another client, Jan, who had passed away in a really weird malpractice kind of thing. Besides the point. And Anita said, well, here, I've developed an ability, being so close myself, to be able to speak to people who've already passed on. So I said, well, yeah, if you're offering, sure, I'm not going to deny that. And a couple weeks later, she said, I spoke to Jan, and her tattoos were floating all around her. I had done a lot of tattoo work on her arms, and she had 2 sleeves, and she said her tattoo patterns were floating all around her. And then she said, no, it was more like she was her tattoos. And that was really enlightening for me, because I was like, that's my intention all along, was to kind of, like an artist's interpretation of someone's energy in its best state or highest potential, was my intention of how I approach tattooing. And Anita had really picked up on that. But she also said that Jan had a message, and it was, it's so long ago now, but in essence it was, there is no certainty. And more throughout my life, and this is also an example of how you can let something sit back that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but over time, and with experiences, something makes more sense, and you go back to that thing and go, oh my God, there is no certainty. Maybe also that's an aspect of that we're learning how, not just how to exist when there is no certainty, but maybe the real truth is there is no certainty always, and it's always our comfort of feeling certain about an outcome is actually the illusion that has been there like training wheels to make us feel safe. And now we're in another stage of uncertainty, which is really difficult for us, so there's all this clamoring. And the more we're able to kind of settle into our heart, as an organ of perception, and our gut, and let the brain in our head be like the secretary or the receptionist to just process things. Because my experience in readings and stuff, the heart doesn't exist in the realm of time and linear thinking. That's where the brain comes in. So I think if you were just in your heart, you would never get anywhere. You might be like someone sitting in a cave or something. Now, the other aspect with Anita's story that I wanted to mention quickly while we're on the topic of the heart is she had a vision that she shared with me, because I had offered to put her information, anything she had to share, into a book, because she was not afraid to die. She was upset that she had developed an ability to heal throughout her 29 years, if I'm correct, of fighting cancer. and she wanted to help others, and now she was being taken away before she could do that. So I said, well, I could put some of your things you have to offer in a book. And one of the things she had to offer was a vision she had of being in a giant cosmic heart, like an actual pumping, living heart. And she was in there, and she said she felt the presence of other beings, people, but she couldn't see them, maybe slight shadows or something, but she knew she was with others. And this big heart that they were in was just pumping, and it was scary because the heart is muscle, and they felt the danger of being suffocated or crushed by this muscle. So only in the need to just deal and get out of fear and adjust to the situation at hand, she let go at some point. And by letting go, she became one with the heart, which therefore stopped the danger aspect of her experience. And she was able to let go. And in letting go and therefore becoming one with the heart, so she could perceive what the heart perceived. She said it was like the heart was this cosmic universal heart, and she had this connection for that timeless moment with that perception, and she embodied that feeling, which always stuck with me. It was something really powerful, but it's taking me back to this situation, and any situation where you're overloaded and it's just too much for certain circuits to process. There are natural things that people will go through, but there's also kind of a natural process in how the stages of how they process things. And I think there are parallels to, what was her name? The stages of when someone's dying, the stages of death, or the processing levels they go through, like denial and so on. Anyways, I can mention it tomorrow. But there are stages that someone goes through in dying, coming to terms with it, that are very similar to, I think, any kind of death, symbolic death of an old world view that you thought was very real and safe or safer, and then you're thrown out of that and you have to everything, capitulate, process, and at some point probably fall into a new level, a new beginning of this new world view where things start to pick up the pieces and things start to feel more together as a whole. And then probably somewhere down the road again, or possibly, there could be another upheaval. Could be globally, like in this case, or it could be just you yourself in some unique little situation. Many of us just as teenagers know that's part and parcel of growing up. So anyways, that's just my little ramble on that topic. I did want to show you, because I can actually do it on the camera if it shows, but this is I don't know if it works. Yeah, maybe. This is the inside of my cup, and you can see all the little cracks and things, and it's beautiful. And for those of you that are feeling flawed and cracked, there is a lot of beauty to it, and there's nothing wrong with a couple of cracks here and there. So, and a couple of flaws. So keep that in mind. We're gonna show the paintings of Heather's?
Go for it.
Are you gonna turn on the light so we
Yep.
can see the better? Okay. So I'm just gonna turn this camera around. Hello. And I'll wait till Raven puts the light on, and then I'll sort of do different angles of the. Okay, ready to go. There we go. It's still a bit dark, but these are Heather's. I'm going to do a little close up and then I'll step back, but just look at some of the detail in this painting, in the water. And I'm kind of proud to say that Heather mentioned she got inspired and came up with her water theme one time getting a tattoo session at our place.
Because of this painting that you were working on.
Oh, yeah, because of this painting that was on our ceiling at the time that was in progress.
And this is my favorite painting.
And this, yeah.
to me, this painting communicates the importance of trust and surrender. Something that I'm not very good at, but I'm working on.
There we go. Just a bit to step back. Apologize for, oh, maybe I can, oh, there we go. Yeah, wonderful paintings. Wonderful paintings. Now, just run back to the studio, turning that off. Why'd you do that?
I thought we were wrapping up.
Well, we're wrapping up, but not yet. Okay, so gotta finish with the same screen as before. Crazy Raven. Yeah, there we go. So anyways, folks, we've already gone over time, so thank you for hanging out and having a matcha with us. And next one, we'll focus more on the door and symbolism and inspiration behind that and stuff. So anyways, guys, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.